Is the Marvels really as bad as people say it is? Is it a woke mess? Is it a good movie? What do we think? Well, finally, I sat down and I watched the Marvels for the first time. I didn't go and see it at the cinemas. I couldn't bring myself to do it. And I have to report, unfortunately, that this was not a good movie. There were good aspects of the movie, and we will get to those good aspects of the movie. But first of all, we need to talk about how much of a mess, just an absolute mess it was. For $250 million, a whole bunch of the movie reshot, and pretty much no real narrative structure to speak of. It was a very, very confusing and confused film. We have our three stars, Brie Larson, Iman Vellani, and Teyonah Parris. And then we have Samuel L. Jackson in the supporting role, playing a completely different version of Nick Fury than we just saw in last year's Secret Invasion. And I mean, it is a different character. Totally different character traits. Comic relief Nick Fury is what we're looking at here. It's very confusing and it's very jarring when the Marvel Cinematic Universe likes to pride itself on having this overarching narrative that connects everything. You might as well have said that the Nick Fury in Secret Invasion and the Nick Fury in the Marvels were in two different universes. I know they're doing the multiverse thing at the moment. You might as well use that excuse because they're not the same character. The plot of the movie is that Captain Marvel, Brie Larson, went and destroyed the AI Kree superintelligence or supreme intelligence that rules over Hala, the Kree homeworld. And in doing so, somehow killing the AI doomed the Kree to destitution, civil war. The oceans dried up and the sun burnt out because she destroyed an AI. Doesn't make sense, but there we go. I mean, the civil war aspect of it makes sense, but the fact that the air is not breathable now and the fact that the oceans are gone and the sun has burnt out, it's not really explained. And they call her, what do they call her? They call her like Annihilator. And then we have a villain by the name of, I think it was Dar-Benn. She was so forgettable that I apologize if I get things wrong about it. Just an extremely forgettable villain who has one of those accuser-style hammer things that Ronan has in Guardians of the Galaxy, the first one. First of all, she goes and finds a quantum band, which is what Ms. Marvel wears. If you've seen the Ms. Marvel series, she wears a bangle on her arm, and then that gives her powers. Dar-Benn finds one of these, and she uses it in conjunction with her super hammer to go to planets that are important to Captain Marvel and steal their resources to give them to Hala. She goes to the first planet where there's a bunch of Skrulls, and she steals their atmosphere, she steals their air, and transports it through the jump point. She's creating new jump points. It's all very confusing. To Hala, and then they can breathe again. Then she goes to an all singing, all dancing planet. Their communication is literally song because Disney, I guess. And 90-odd% of the planet is ocean, so she steals their ocean and she dumps it on Hala. And then she goes to come to our solar system to steal our sun, and the Marvels have to go and stop her. And all the while, the Marvels are forced together because the bangle and the bangle that Miss Marvel wears, plus the jump points, mean that Captain Marvel, Ms. Marvel, and I guess we're calling her Photon, their powers keep switching anytime two of them use their powers, except when the plot needs it not to, because it seems to be something that happens at inconvenient times, but doesn't happen at convenient times. or happens at convenient times and doesn't happen at other times. It's very, 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 very confused. But it's more like a bunch of scenes strapped together with no real character development, no real emotional hook, and no real thread running through it. It's like they shot a bunch of scenes and they said, this'll do. There are a couple of action sequences, and in fact, the action sequence at the end, where they fight and defeat Dar-Benn, is actually very well done. It's very well choreographed, and it looks good, and it's a good point. But the CGI here is just as bad as we have come to expect from Marvel these days. They used to do great CGI, but this is not good. Very obvious green screening when there is green screening. It's obvious. Other side plot with Nick Fury on the space station, and the space station's going to blow up. So what they do is that cat thing, Goose, that was in the first Captain Marvel movie, that's really a Flerken. It has a bunch of babies. And so in order to get everybody out of the space station, because there aren't enough escape pods, they have everybody eaten by the Flerkens in what is really quite a horrific scene, actually, where people are running scared for their lives and getting eaten up by these things. But they're totally fine. They're totally fine. But it's still quite a terrifying scene. Unfortunately, it's very clear to me that this movie had no direction. It was directed by Nia DaCosta, but it had no real vision. It was like they had to have a Captain Marvel sequel. It had to come out, well, I think it already came out later than it was going to, but it had to come out on the slate. They couldn't think of a story to give Captain Marvel by herself, so they shoehorned in Ms. Marvel and Photon and the power switching thing, and still it didn't work. I'll tell you what did work about this movie. The single best thing about this movie, in my personal opinion, was Iman Vellani, who played Ms. Marvel. Now, people trash her Disney Plus show. I didn't think it was terrible. It's just another Disney Plus Marvel show where you get 5 episodes of filler and then a fight at the end. That's what Disney Plus Marvel shows have become. And hopefully, with the scrapping of most of Daredevil Born Again that they had already shot and then reshooting with old characters back in play, maybe they're learning from that mistake. Maybe, because we did just get Echo, and the less said about that, the better, to be honest. Except for Vincent D'Onofrio, obviously bringing his A game to that. But Iman Vellani here absolutely shines through. She was the only one to turn up and really enthusiastically play her part. And I think she did a great job, and I think she's a great young actress, and I hope she gets more roles out of this and doesn't get stuck typecast in this dying Marvel franchise. Because the franchise is dying, and it's dying because of their own actions, because they keep making these over-bloated, over-expensive movies that they just think they can fix in post-production, fix in the edit. From what I understand, the new Captain America movie was pretty much fully shot. They've scrapped it. They're reshooting it again. 6 months of reshoots. Daredevil Born Again. These budgets are overstretched, over-bloated, and they're still not producing the kind of quality that they used to. Marvel used to produce great... They were kind of cookie cutter, but they were dependable, they were good, the effects were brilliant, the action was brilliant, and it kept people invested. But nowadays, it's like they've just lost all of their good writers, they've lost their direction, they've lost their ability to hang on to the audience. And it's an unfortunate thing to see, because let's face it, DC's not much better, if it's better at all. I haven't even seen Aquaman 2. I'm not going to go and see Aquaman 2. I'll wait until it comes out to watch for free on a streaming service. It doesn't interest me. But unfortunately, this movie seems to be the trend now. Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania was absolute garbage. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 was sort of a return to form, but that's a different animal. It was James Gunn's baby. It wasn't really overwhelmed by Marvel Studios. The less said about Multiverse of Madness, which had a brilliant director attached to it in Sam Raimi, but very obvious major studio interference. Shang-Chi, extremely forgettable. The Eternals was absolutely terrible. We've got Deadpool 3, or Deadpool and Wolverine as it's now called, coming out in July, and that looks absolutely fantastic. And I'm seeing people scream, this is going to save Marvel. I don't think it will. I think it will do bank. I think it will make a lot of money at the box office. But I think it will be an outlier. And we will return to form with whatever comes after it, because they've waited too long to make the Fantastic Four movie. The Blade movie is in development hell. That should have been out by now. Unfortunately, Marvel Studios seem to have lost that magic that they used to have. So I can't rate the Marvels any higher than like a 3 or a 4 out of 10. And that's being generous only because of Iman Vellani. Her performance in this movie alone saves any kind of viewing experience. She's brilliant. It's the only thing that I can really say that's positive. Anyway, did you enjoy it? Do you think the narrative was coherent? Do you agree with what I've said? I'm not trying to trash this movie for the sake of trashing it. I'm only giving my honest thoughts and opinions on it, because that's what we do here at The Real Review. We give our honest thoughts and opinions. And, you know, even if people say something's bad and we think it's good, we will say that. And if people think something's good and we think it's bad, we will say that too. And honestly speaking, The Marvels was just so disappointing, because that first Captain Marvel movie wasn't very good in itself, but it did make $1 billion at the box office. $1 billion. This lost money. And you know what? It should have lost money. On that note, thank you for watching this. Let me know if you agree down below. And we will speak to you again in another episode of At the Movies. Bye for now.